What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 175 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have a I Am a Hardscaper mashup, where we take 2022's episodes of I Am a Hardscaper interviews, where we bring on a business owner and dissect their business, and we mash up stories, different answers from common questions that I ask these contractors, and just put it all into one episode so that you can get everything, kind of a roundup of 2022 in each of these episodes. We have about 10 to 15 I Am a Hardscaper episodes per year, so you get a taste of each of those 10 to 15 episodes in these mashup series. But before we get into today's episode, if you need bookkeeping, accounting, or CFO services, check out Cycle CPA. Check them out at cyclecpa.com and mention the How to Hardscape podcast to get $200 off their services there if you reach out to them. And we'll talk more about them later in today's episode. But on today's I Am a Hardscaper Mash-Up series, we talk about the horror stories of owning and operating a contracting, specifically hardscaping business, things that have come up, and there are some excellent stories in these. This is always a question that I ask everyone that comes on the show, which makes it easy to put together this type of mashup episode where I take everyone's response, put it all into one episode. You'll hear each of these responses with a quick introduction of who that person is and their business. If you want to go reach out to them and thank them for coming on the show or anything that you want to talk to them about there. So their introduction plays, and then their response to me asking them, do you have a horror story that you'd want to share with us? And the reason why I ask this to everybody is just to help prepare those just starting out or those that have been in business for a while, to just help safeguard ourselves, things that we can add to our contracts or things that we can just mentally prepare ourselves that may happen in the future in our businesses. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
I'm Cruz Loan. I own basically two businesses, Chicago Brick Paving and Chicago Outdoor Designs. Oh, yeah, of course. I did a lot of work for this builder. So he basically went out of business, and I got screwed with like $20,000 that I didn't get paid. That was like maybe 5-6 years ago. And don't ever trust people, the way I see it, don't do verbal agreements. Whatever you guys do, like change orders, or make sure you got everything written down. Make sure you got some good contracts, because there's going to be a client that they're going to screw you. You're always going to find that client. So just make sure you get everything, nice contracts, change orders, don't do verbally. Because also too, I did a verbal agreement with a client, and basically I got screwed with some money in there. I used to do a snow removal too. So I did work for these management companies, and I got screwed with big money. So believe it or not, like in 2 years, I got screwed with like $80,000, which is a lot of money. Like for us, like a business owners, to make $80,000 net profit, you got to do like $300,000 in work. So, and not having that 80 grand or 90, whatever it was, it's just like, I struggled, man, financially for like 2-3 years after that, because it's hard. It's a big hit to get screwed that kind of way. So for those guys that are starting on the business, and sometimes we're so busy doing the jobs, or we get so busy, make sure you get the time to make sure you got everything in writing. Make sure you guys have contracts. If you guys don't have any nice contracts, just go and hire a lawyer. They can do something for you. They can pay, $400 or $500, and it's going to save you more money, because you're always gonna find that client that they're gonna try to screw you.
I'm Jeffrey Schmidt of Down to Earth Landscaping,
and I'm Chuck Gillum of Down to Earth Landscaping.
Well, if somebody tells you they don't, they'd be lying. Yeah, we have one that we'd be happy to share with you. I was actually on vacation at the time, so I'll let Chuck kind of explain what happened, since he took the lead.
But it's on me, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were rocking and rolling. This is probably 4 years ago, and we had a lot of landscape projects. We were still doing maintenance. We really didn't have everything dialed in. And I took a call, or I took a text, and someone said, "Hey, can you do this project?" And I said, "Yeah, great. Send me the address. I'll go look at it. Let me know what you're looking to do." And it turned out to be a scam. And so we went to the job, we started to do the installation, and it was a total scam. They were like, hey, we're going to have our plumber stub out the water line for you guys to do the irrigation system or something silly like that. And I was way over my head with what was going on at that time. And so I said, great. We paid this guy like $2,000 cash or something silly. We go back to the job and we're putting in an irrigation system and all new sod. And we got a check. They sent us a check and it was a fraudulent check. And so we cashed the check. We're like halfway through this job, cashed the check. And they said, hey, there's no funds here. And so we're like, God, what is going on? Call the guy. He's like, oh yeah, let me get that figured out right now. Call my bank. And never heard from him again. Oh. And we're in the middle of this project. And this happens a lot. We still get these texts. And what they do is they find houses that are on the market and say, hey, I'm moving into this house. I need all this work done before I move in. And so we were halfway done with this job and we were like, we can't just leave this like this because this is someone's actual house. So we installed an all new irrigation system and a brand new, front lawn for these folks. And thanks to Down to Earth, they got a beautiful new yard.
Oh man, that's quite a story. That's you say that happens quite frequently. You get these messages.
Yeah, we still get emails and texts like, hey, I've got this property. This is the address. Can you give me a bid? Can you make this happen tomorrow?
Yeah. Something to watch out for. Something to watch out for.
Yeah, that is rough. It's a difficult one to swallow for sure, but you probably made somebody's day there. So
sure. Yeah.
We even called the realtor and we're like, hey, this is the situation that we're in. It's not ideal for any of us. Sorry about it, but we're going to give you a brand new lawn. So I hope this house sells for you.
Right.
Hi, I'm Mike Barker with Elevate Outdoor Living. I thought about this question because I know you're going to ask it. And I asked my wife too. I was like, what's our horror story? And to be honest, like it comes down to like, it was with maintenance clients and it was just, it was with maintenance. Now I will say, one thing that has been kind of our fault, right, is just not bidding the project properly and not having all of our numbers in line with where we need to be. And that's kind of self-inflicted, but not too much with the customers. So
yeah, that's interesting. And it made me think of the 80-20 principle where 80% of your headaches are coming from 20% of the maybe revenue coming into your business or profitability coming into your business. So that probably plays a role in you kind of cutting that out of your business.
It does. And basically we kind of sat down and said, do we want to deal with 100 people, like you said, in 20% of our revenue and lower margins, or do we want to deal with 10 to 20 people a year who are super happy at, getting the project done?
Hi, I'm Jeremy from Willow Gates Landscaping. How much time do you have? So we don't have many, okay? I think a couple. So if you see a red flag, heed the red flag. Yeah. If you've got policies in place for contracts and down payments and they don't want to do that, heed the red flag. So I'll give a couple examples. One goes back quite a few years. And I will say this, the hungrier you are, the more likely you're going to be to bend your own rules. So we were close to the end of the season, but it wasn't the end of the season. And we had no real projects in the pipeline, except for this one we're working on. It goes back to 2012. And I had one subcontractor coming in there to build a fireplace. And they're good people. Like, I don't need to mark up their price much. Oh, and the client, so a typical SRW wall, they wanted a masonry wall with stone veneer. So we brought in a mason for all of that, the fireplace, the wall, and they did a fine job. But I didn't mark them up much at all. Like, a couple $100, no big deal. They're nice people. I know them. We trade work back and forth. Well, that fireplace can be a huge issue, not because there's anything wrong, but the client well, if I start back at the beginning, they were serious about the project. They had an approximate budget we're trying to reach. and we're pretty close to it. But he just didn't want to get the deposit and the signed contract to me. And there was one thing he wanted to insert in the contract. I forget what it was. What you want to put some kind of little disclaimer there. I forget what it was. And I was like, sure, fine, whatever. Let it go. Should never have done that. So the problem with that job site is we didn't do everything in exactly the same order as we originally planned. There's a front walkway and a rear patio. And the plan had been to, I think, do the entire patio and then the front walkway. Well, just with the way it worked out with materials and with the sub coming in for the walls and the fireplace, we did the front walkway before the patio is completed. And they had a few points they wanted to argue about in that patio. So at one point, they had quite a bit of money that they had not paid because we didn't do things in exact sequence we said we would. So on a larger project now, if there's mobile trays coming in, if I think there could be a little bit of change in the order of how things are built, I will say so much is due when this feature is done. So if one feature's in the front yard, one's in the backyard, progress payments due when this is done. Not so I'm saying at this point in the entire project. That's one lesson I learned out of that. Another one, to this day, I don't know what the guy's problem was. I've been there to discuss a project. We had the price agreed upon, and he said he had me a signed contract and the deposit were ready to start. And this is actually a very recent project, and I don't know why I bet my own rules, I really don't. This would have been in spring 2020. This was the beginning of COVID, okay? And we had some projects on the books from before, but they needed to have building permits. And I could get a building permit, but I couldn't get inspections because everything building related was shut down for a period of time. So we were hunting for some work, and this one project seemed like a really good fit. Adding a simple seating wall around a patio, doing some restoration to the patio. And I actually already dropped off the excavator. And he said, okay, I'll be work to you tomorrow. Next day, we're wrapping another project. And he tried calling me, I don't know, it was late morning. And I called him back mid-afternoon and he was mad. Come pick up your equipment. I want you to do the job. So I don't really know what went sour there. I really don't. But another example of don't break your own rules. He didn't sign a contract, give me a deposit at least 3 days ahead of time. So why are they even considering doing that job? Well, I was a bit hungry, okay? We needed a hardscape job to go to, and I didn't have permits or couldn't get inspections for everything that's on the list. So I was feeling a little hungry, wanted to work for my crew, and I bent my own rules. So don't ignore those red flags.
Yeah.
That's probably my best advice to avoid these horror stories.
That's excellent advice.
If you're making changes to the project, document change orders, and the best thing to do is get a payment for that change order immediately, or with the next progress payment, don't let it go to the end of the project. You come down to the project, and if they did sign for all those change orders, they still have their mind that that last final payment is going to be 20% of the project. And they agreed to those change orders, but man, now they've got an extra $10,000 to pay that they agreed to, but they didn't really make plans for it in their budget. Now they're trying to find the money. That project I gave an example of, I just kept finding little things to complain about. We had done design the fireplace, and one of the complaints was, "Oh, the hearth isn't deep enough. We need to extend the hearth." Okay, sure, we can do that. That means digging up the patio, pouring another extension to the concrete footer, and building back up, and it's going to cost you some money. Oh, no, we can't do that. We can't spend any more money. And that's kind of how the project went. They were out of money, and they doing any excuse they could find to avoid paying that final payment. It took me, I think, about 6 to 9 months to get the last of my money. There's very, very few projects that have cost me sleep. That's pretty rare. That was one of them.
Hi, I'm E.T. Leger from Montreal, Quebec. I am the owner and operator of Leger Landscapes. Yeah, I could have a few, but one of them that really stuck out was a client 2 years ago where she signed the contract, paid the deposit, big multi-million-dollar house, like really obviously had money, and we did a bunch of work for her. When we finished the project, she hadn't, like, again, it was a repair. It wasn't a complete repair. It was a partial repair. So we put in a drain in front of her back steps because she wanted the water to drain out. We did certain repairs at certain areas in the property, put in a trench drain along a drainage pipe for the gutter. A few little things, but she hadn't selected like every single service that we had given her, priced her for. And at the time she had said, I don't want to do this and do this. So we just redid her contract and only gave her the thing she wanted. We all finished. She's like, well, I don't like how this looks. I'm like, well, look, we have a contract agreement. You agreed to this. She's, I agree. Like, okay, this is extra. I'm like, okay. So she said, how much to fix this? I'm like, all right, well, it's going to be, $3,000 to pick up the rest of the pavers that we originally were not going to, of this part of the property that we were not going to fix because you didn't want to do it at the time. So she's, all right. I said, $3,000. Are you okay with it? My employees were there. She says, yes, I agree. So I should have had a change order filled out. I didn't. I was like, look, the lady was nice. She was bringing us like cookies and drinks and all types of stuff. We're like, this lady's the best, Then later on in the project, there was something else. She's like, well, could you I don't like how this drain looks. Can you remove it? I said, yeah, but if I remove the drain, which I just put in, you paid me to do it. And it's going to cost, another $2,000. She says, yes, okay, let's do it. Let's do it right. I said, look, ma'am, I said, we're kind of, instead of how we had been at the beginning of the project, and we just said no drain, I would have re-sloped the pavers all a certain way, but now I sloped them all into the drain, which is not there anymore. So now we have to re-slope them. So anyways, it ended up being almost like $7,000 of change orders on like a $20,000 project. So it was 27 by the end of it. And I go to get paid and she's like, no, I'm not paying. I'm like, ma'am, like you verbally agree, like we're there with all the employees. She's like, but you have a little clause on your website that says 100% satisfaction guarantee. I said, okay. She says, yeah, well, that means that I'm not 100% satisfied, so I don't have to pay for the change orders. And this lady's like an engineer. Like, she's not like a dummy. I was like, ma'am, like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you're 100% satisfaction guarantee. Anyways, long story short, lots of discussion with her, a lot of back and forth. We had to meet like halfway. So I lost a bunch of money on it, but it was a lesson. Like, and my office manager was like, yeah, you should have gotten a change order. I'm like, yeah, you're right. But the point was it wasn't even like a bad relation with the person. Just, it was, I think, deceit, unfortunately, on her side or craziness, but just, it was a good lesson for us. And from then on, we have told the office manager will not put a schedule. I mean, it's not her fault, but we will not add anything with not a change order. And that's just how we do it. And that's how I think we're going to keep ourselves out of trouble, because there's all types of crazy people in the world. And
I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode.
My name is Ken Deemer. I am one of the managing partners at Local Roots Landscaping.
My name is Patrick Murray, and I'm one of the managing partners at Local Roots Landscaping. Ken, I think I'll share with the one and only time we went to court. That seems to make sense, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I'll share.
Then I've got one too.
Yeah, so I'll make it quick. So we had a customer went super south, and it was partly our doing, partly their doing. We again learned that we needed a project manager out of this. We learned a ton of stuff from that, but we gave them the quote. We had it all written down, word by word, what they were going to get, but they didn't. It didn't visually look like they thought it would. It was a boulder wall we put in the backyard. It was a $24,000 job, I think, something like that, $21,000 maybe. And their last third. They refused to pay. We'd go back 3, 4, 5 times to keep doing what they would say to make them happy. We kept doing it. And then it came.
We went through like 5 or 6 punch lists on that job.
Yep.
They give us a whole punch list. Here's what you need to do. We'd go back, do it. And they'd be like, here's what else you need to do.
Being accused of breaking stuff, being accused of, you name it. Everything that happened that was bad on that project was being blamed on us. We'd be watched out of the window the entire project. It was just a nightmare project. And that was actually just me and Ken doing that together. We had a couple employees that would help us, but we were doing the install. And we realized, they finally said, okay, we're going to pay you for this. We're okay with it. And then all of a sudden we got another letter. Hey, we're refusing to pay. And it was the last third, which was about, I think, $7,000 to $8,000. And it was devastating. We're like, I don't want to be out that money, but at the same time, what are we going to do? So we did decide to go to court, the magistrate or whatever. We had all of our ducks in a row. We went there, presented ourselves super well. We thought we had it won, and then the judge had our contract there, which we had like generically done through Rocket Lawyer, never proofed it, all that stuff. And there was one line that said, final payment will be given upon completion of the job and the customer's complete satisfaction. And he looked at the customer and said, are you completely satisfied? And he said, no, Your Honor, I am not. He said, I'll be in touch with a verdict after this. And we were like, oh no. But again, so what did we learn there? It was a $25,000 job. We lost $8,000, right? And legally, we lost it, right? That was our fault for that. And we chalked it up to a learning, we going to school basically. And how much worse would it have been if we never fixed our contract that day versus the projects we're on now? That scares me. It's a contract that could have put us out of business at this point, right? And so it's hard to see that in the moment. I get very worked up over those things. I used to get way more worked up over those things, but that learning experience helped us to hopefully insulate us from a larger ramification.
Yeah, so the one I have, this is one a little more recent and devastating. So we had a client last year, actually, and this is one that I'll throw myself under the bus. I just wanted this project. I wanted it so badly, and ignored every single red flag that came in on the way. So every single red flag the client threw up, any of the other contractors we were working with threw up. Nothing was looking good about this project, but I just wanted it. I saw the plans, I saw the design. I was like, we are doing this project. So ignoring everything, went in. I'm really abbreviating this here. Went as miserable as it possibly could have gone. Didn't bring in the proper subcontractor through the right channels. Didn't enforce our contract. Didn't do proper change orders. Allowed the clients to completely demoralize our team, to the point, just quick example. You could see the client watching from the window. Like you could see it, 100 yards away. This is a beautiful bluestone pool deck we did. And it was a natural stone deck. We were wet laying it. So we were mortaring these bluestone down. Bluestone would get mortared down, dried, be done. Client would come down and make our people pull out the bluestone that was already mortared down in, because any structural issues or whatever, they just didn't like how the colors like blended in because it was a natural full range bluestone. And because we were spineless, we didn't, stop it as soon as it should have been stopped. So long story short, we ended up losing $60,000 in the project.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah. So that was, just absolutely got it handed to us. But like Patrick said with the last one, really the ultimate takeaway from that is our contract, and that spawned what we called our client expectations system. And from there, hundreds of man hours went into it across the company, just making sure nothing like this will ever happen again. So that's the tack we try to take as a company, and as we grow, is just like, look, I'll make any mistake once. Does that mean we make every mistake only one time? Absolutely not. But that's the mindset we try to have with it, is like, look, how can we grow from this? How can we build from this? We've already absorbed all the loss. Let's make this as good as we possibly can. So from there, our contract got completely revitalized. From there, our change order process got completely revitalized. We were able to empower our project managers and our team with better plans, better drawings to say, hey, like, this is what you're liable for, and that is it. If anything happens, here's the procedure, here's the process to work through this. And now we've had a number of clients since then that I could have seen going that direction, but the bumpers were so clear on either side, where it's like, kind of like, hey, if I go this direction, it's like, yep, sure, change order. Okay, won't go that direction. If I go this direction, yep, no problem, we're pulling off site. Okay, not going to go that direction. Like, it kind of insulates us from all of those different types of harms that we were able to experience in the past.
Definitely.
Hi, I'm Greg Burnett, 38 years old from Vineland, Ontario. I'm the president of Niagara Outdoor Landscaping. Yeah, so I was kind of racking my brain as to, kind of whether it's, a full, a failed payment or what kind of horror story we had. And, they talk about, maybe some accidents over the years you think about. But like, I think the one horror story that kind of came to my mind was in 2019. It was our last year of lawn cutting. And one of my crews were driving between sites and it came to a stop sign. They're driving this pickup truck with like a long 20-foot trailer. And there was an elderly gentleman, 75 years old, out pushing his lawnmower in the street from the backyard to the side yard. It's a corner lot. And my guys are at the stop sign. They noticed him walking up towards the right side of the trailer, pushing his mower. And I guess the gentleman just kept walking between the trailer and the curb. Don't my guys make a left turn and the back end of the trailer just swings out and bumps the mower, knocks the gentleman over. And, my guys fooled me right away. And of course, the first thing I got a lawsuit on my mind or something like that, right? And at first he just had a scrape on his leg, and this is kind of when COVID just started, so he's reluctant to go to the hospital. And doesn't he go the next day and turns out he had a broken leg, right? So everything's racing through my mind. And this gentleman, he lived with his daughter. I went to the house. I sat down with them after he'd been to the hospital. Just chatted with them, and it was being human, right? Just kind of understanding what was going on. My guy was beside himself that had done it, right? I think they saw that in him. And yeah, just talking it through them with them, and turns out, he needed a ride to go to a couple checkup appointments. My dad actually drove him there. We ended up, cutting the grass for them for the rest of that year. We really made the best of a terrible situation, and, pretty well became friends, a little reminder to have faith in humanity. And just before Christmas, they hired us to do a landscape lighting install for them. And his daughter is, often connecting and, commenting and through our social media. So it's, made the best of a terrible situation, right?
Hey, I'm Nick from NRX Landscaping.
And I'm Rocco from NRX Landscaping.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start off with this one. This one in particular, there's a lot of aspects of horror in the story. So our first kind of red flag was these contingencies that we must abide by while we are on site. So she made it very clear that we're not allowed at any point inside the property even to use the washroom. If we cannot we cannot relieve ourselves outdoors. No porta potties on sites. If we needed to use the washroom, we'd have to drive down to the nearest Tim Hortons. So we said, okay, but we were very pleasant. She said this all with a big smile.
Can I just interrupt you really quickly? Sorry, before we knew. So this is like initial conversation. We knew that this client was, a little bit particular. So we're like, Nick and I are saying, okay, let's charge a little extra because we know this is going to be difficult. So with this in mind, yeah. And then she has all these rules. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah. So we came into this is I'm talking about our very first meeting, these contingencies. She told us this before we even gave a quote. So and mind you, this is a 2-hour conversation we had in our initial conversation. And Rocco and I left, and we kind of looked at each other like, whew, I don't know if I want to do this one, but if we're going to do it, we're going to make it worth our while. Anyways, it was not worth our while. No, we charged what we thought was accordingly. And then we got the project. She decided to go ahead with us. She had a table in her backyard. It was a cast iron table, which was in very, very rough condition. And we were trying to work around it. And at some point, one of our employees left a shovel handle, kind of leaning on this table. And she came out and she let me have it. She started yelling at me, why is this shovel on the table? Do I know how much this table is worth? Do I know how much it's going to cost to repair this table? And I looked at this table and it was, I'm honest, it was scratched everywhere. And she lifted up the handle where it was leaning and there was this tiny little blemish. And she said to me, this is going to cost me hundreds of dollars. And I said, okay. And then she said, you know what? I'm going to wait for my husband to get home. So I stood around and I let them yell at me. I just took it. The husband came home and they yelled at me for about 45 minutes straight. 45 minutes straight in front of neighbors, in front of everybody. And and their request was that to get it finished, however, how they wanted it was going to cost. They made this number up on top of their head that they're going to withhold $500 of payment, just to make sure that this table gets refinished properly, which they never did anything. They just withheld $500 of payment, and I said, you know what, it wasn't worth it. And for a client, when you're taking on a client and you say to yourself, it's not worth fighting, or it's not worth arguing for it, that's not the kind of client you want to take on. Other than that, we've had like really good clients. We've been very lucky with very good clients. But this one client, it wasn't that just a table. We had another problem there with.
That was the first one. The first $500.
There's so many problems. There's so many. She had an off. We weren't touching the driveway at all. But her driveway is one of those driveways that looks like a wave pool in the asphalt. Right? It was probably like 20 years old, cracks everywhere. And then she told us that miraculously somehow that while we were there, it just got worse. So she wanted us to, anyway, it's just one of those. From beginning to end, it was a nightmare. Somehow, like we still managed to get paid for that project, and she still said thank you, and it's just I wouldn't do that again. Let's just
one of the biggest red flags is when she was talking to us, and this is like one of her higher, like she was in a good mood for some reason, because I guess maybe she just got an extra $500, and she was telling us how the roofers did her roof, and then a shingle fell off of her roof and fell and hit her outdoor railing, and she's I got the roofers to reinstall. I got new railings because of that, and I'm like, oh, why are you bragging about this?
Right. She was bragging about it. She goes, you know what I got out of that?
Free railings.
Yeah.
Wow.
The one that shall not be named. Yeah. Anyways, that was in 2017, I think. 2017. That was our worst client. And other than that, we've had phenomenal clients.
Yeah, I think it ended off with the final inspection. They didn't like any, like they didn't sign off on the final inspection. It was after however long, and eventually we agreed to kind of. I think they held maybe 10% of the final installment, and we said keep on to it. We don't want to hear from you guys again.
Yeah,
your warranty is nullified. So no more warranty, just keep the money. We don't want to hear from you again. And they're just like, okay, perfect. So it was their goal to see how much really they could knock down off of that estimate.
Yeah. They won.
Just sever it. Just, you know what, to keep the money, we're going.
Hi, my name is Landon. I own Planet Green Landscapes with my partner, Tom. I certainly do. There's a lot of mistakes, right? If you have 25, 30 people, I make mistakes every day. So there's going to be like just your mistakes. I don't think of those as horror stories. We've had some stuff go, pretty wrong. With regards to payments and everything else, there's one. Yeah. So to get into the story, so I mentioned a pool company that we did a lot of work with. Because we worked with them a lot, we would try to help each other out where we could. So they brought us into a client. We didn't know the client very well. The client had a backyard with an existing armor stone retaining wall. The whole property sloped towards the house. And they wanted this big, grand backyard design. So we started the design process with them. Now, we usually collect the design fee up front. They had some excuse the day that we were there for the check. They didn't have it ready, whatever, we kind of overlooked it. And basically, we designed the backyard. They wanted to replace this armor stone wall with a big ledge rock, like masonry wall. Showed us a bunch of inspiration photos. We're like, okay, for sure. We design it. Design looks great. We price it all out, and they don't like they can't afford the back wall, basically. So they decide to cut the back wall and just add on to the existing armor stone. Say it was a 50-foot wall, 5 feet high. They want to extend another 50 feet so the pool would sit flat and be retained. Long story short, my pool guy had a bunch of pool permits that were hung up. This pool wasn't supposed to start until sometime in October, and now it's September. And he's like, I'd really like to dig it next week, but I can't dig it until this retaining wall's in. Can you please go there, just put the wall in, and then we will build a pool, and we can figure out the rest of the design. So we agreed. We kind of bent over backwards, pulled off another job, with that client's blessing, thankfully, and went in there, extended this wall. Pool guys went to work putting the pool in, and we didn't hear much about it. Then they stopped talking to us like about the design and everything, but the client wouldn't talk to us. Turns out they were very upset that they didn't end up going with the ledge rock wall. And now that this whole wall was in, they regretted doing it. So we get into like late fall. I'm kind of reached out a few times, guys, what's going on? Can I get paid for this wall? They had agreed to the price of the wall. I think the extension on the wall was like $25,000 or something that we put in. Christmas Eve comes around and I get a knock on my door and I'm getting served for to go to small claims court against this client. It turns out the clients were a husband and wife. They're both personal injury lawyers, and I'm sure there's plenty of great personal injury lawyers, but these weren't two of them. And they tried to say that the wall was built incorrectly, and they're suing us for $30,000, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the maximum amount you can do in Ontario in small claims court. So I went to court for a resolution meeting. That's kind of like pre-trial. I showed up by myself. The judge says, "What's going on?" We tell him our side of the story. He's like, so you didn't pay for the wall. You never paid for your design, and you want him to pay you money because this wall's built incorrectly. Like, that seems kind of crazy. And they're like, well, it impacted the way we could build the rest of our backyard. And he said to me, like, "Where's your lawyer?" I said, "I don't have one." Like, to me, it seems pretty obvious that they're just trying to get money out of me. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to be your trial lawyer." He's like, "That's going to be someone else. If he doesn't see eye to eye with you, you're going to be out a lot of money. You better get a lawyer." So I got a lawyer. He gets a bunch of professional opinions. They look at all the photos. We had photos before and after. And basically, this couple had brought in an engineer and instructed them to find problems with the wall. And all the problems he found with the wall were of the existing wall that was already there. And because we had all pre-site photos and everything, we could prove that. So anyways, this goes back and forth forever. Long story short, they reach out to my lawyer and they're trying to settle. And I'm like, I'm not settling with these people. Like, I was so upset. And they just kept bringing the amount down. Okay, we'll settle for 20, for 25, for 15, for whatever it got down to. And then eventually they said, "Listen, we paid this engineer $5,000. Just pay us the $5,000 that we paid for the engineer and we'll settle." And it was going to cost me like $6,000 a day to go to court. So I said, like, I would settle for $4,000 just so I knew that they were losing some money too, because I had paid a bunch of fees. So we never got paid for the wall, never got paid for the design, had to pay lawyer fees, and had to also pay them $4,000. And it basically just came down to like deviating from our process. If we would have stuck with our process, not got into it without a signed contract, not jumping. And we thought we were helping out the pool guy. We thought we were helping them out. And so that's probably my worst one. We've had a few people like not pay, early on, just get to the end of a project. And, like you're working for some elderly lady and she starts crying and says she doesn't have any money. And you're like, what do you do? So, but for the most part, for how long we've been doing this and how many people we've worked for, it's been 99% great experiences. So lots of wonderful people out there.
I am Aaron Colley with Spaces Design Build. Well, when I was young, I had one client not pay me. I think it was like $1,600. Back then, how I priced my job, I was 16, I was a kid. So I took my materials, my equipment that I needed, I multiplied it by 2, and that was my price. And I was putting in patios.
Yeah.
And I was great money on the weekend. I was a high school kid. It was good money. And I just wrote out a simple contract. People were good with it. Built many walls, many patios that way. Horror story, when we first started this business, and we're getting on the tailwinds of it now, it's been ongoing. And that is not knowing my numbers. My first two years, I didn't have a clue what I should be charging. Really didn't have a clue. Just listen to, stuff on all these Facebook groups and all this other chatter, which I've tuned some out now, and you see me responding a little bit more now. But that led to just a bunch of financial issues. Thankfully, some other contractors here in town, through social media, we finally started talking. I'm a very private person. I don't reach out much, to my fault. And that just really, really hurt. And we're still catching up from that. But I think not knowing your numbers, and just, I would encourage any young guys out there, reach out to myself for help, Weston, Synced Up. I mean, there's a myriad of guys. I mean, we're all willing to help. And I found the hardscape community is just awesome. And that's really, I mean, it's been horrific where we did and where we went financially. Just really, really get your numbers, get some help, ask for help. I mean, guys will help. I mean, local guys will help. I mean, there's some guys that are jerks, but I haven't met one yet.
This is Nick Cardillo with the Yard Fathers Premier Outdoor Living. I haven't had anything too extreme. I will say that most of my payment client horror stories is what my clauses and policies in my contract are based off of. So typically, I had a client that had a failing driveway, asphalt driveway. It was obviously sinking already. And we tried to stay off it, but the last day we were loading stuff on it and it sank a little more. And he wanted me to pay for his entire driveway. So I came to an agreement that I'd take a couple grand off his bill. Just because I wanted to get out of there. I had another one where we were supposed to put a patio in and we dug down and it was wet. And we ended up digging down about 16 feet and there happened to be a spring there. And it was basically going to cost the guy another 10 grand to fix the situation. He didn't want to pay for it. So he spent basically the budget that he was supposed to get a patio on for us to just dig it up and fix what we messed up, which was unfortunate. But I mean, that's really it. I did have a general contractor not pay me about 16 grand for an installation we did.
Yeah. And then how do you kind of overcome those difficulties? Like that one with the spring, I'm sure that's a tough one to swallow because you've already, likely maybe put your order in for the product. You are already forecasting that sale to come in. And then, you run into that issue. You have to bring it up to the client. The client is not happy. How do you overcome something like that? Or even a missed payment from a general contractor? How do you kind of continue to move past these struggles that you might experience?
I mean, they're always hard. It's always a bad day. But I think with anything, all those situations have to be looked at as like a learning growth experience. So how do I prevent this from happening next time? What do I have to what kind of policies do I have to put in place so I'm protecting myself, my guys and everything, so this doesn't happen again? Or what did I do wrong? Et cetera, et cetera. So I try to look at it as much as possible as a learning experience. I could either stand there and be upset and mad about it and ruin weeks, months, or I can, just grow from it. And it's kind of how I've done with my business from the very beginning is all the stuff, even if I don't make money on something, I need to get something out of it. That'll make me better in the future.
Hi, my name is Antonio Zeppa. I'm with Zeppa's. Yeah, I've got too many. One specific to hardscaping, I can remember we had to, we basically had to lift up an entire patio. It's settled. We did a proper excavation and stuff like that, but it was a new build. So the even after we dug down a certain amount, the subsoil was still, I guess, not settled all the way. So this patio settled and it was a family friend. And so, we didn't know how else to remove it at the time. And I have probably resources now to do it in a different capacity, but we basically had to relay this entire patio. So we took it up and it was all poly sanded. So the only way that we knew at the time to get off of it was literally scrape every single block. And so we had to rebuild this entire thing.
Yeah, that's rough. That's a rough one. Does any how do you get through something like that? Like when something, not necessarily that situation, but when something bad happens in your business, how do you move through that and still remain a positive leader on the other side or while you're going through it to help your guys through that?
Yeah. One of our core values is integrity. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you just fix it and move on. And like, those are the most valuable lessons. Like, I seriously could sit here and go, I think the more and more you're removed from the business and you're being a coach and kind of observing and seeing and growing, the more problems you're going to run into, but the more you're learning as well. So, you know, we put gas in a diesel truck, diesel in a gas tank. I mean, you know, anything you can think of, we've done. Flipped a machine into a lake. I mean, everything.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. I appreciate you listening to the How to Hardscape podcast week in and week out. Reach out to me at How to Hardscape on Instagram. That's the best place to reach out. If you have any topics that you want to hear on future episodes, we have lots of these mashups coming out to you each week for the remainder of the year, as well as more I Am a Hardscaper interviews and other various topics leading into the winter here. So be sure that you're subscribed or following this podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever that might be, leaving us a rating and review because that always helps us, as well as check out Cycle CPA for your accounting, bookkeeping, CFO services, and let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off your services there. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.